Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold. We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC, a proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. As always, new content drops Thursday nights. Hope this Halloween weekend is safe and heavy for all. On this week's show, Metal Walt welcomes Jay Jay Brown, bassist of 90s metal band Fight, Rob Halford's first project outside of Judas Priest in the early 90s. Jay Jay and Waltz are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the iconic War of Words album. Jay Jay talks about his thriving career as a tattoo artist, painter, and the return of his band S.I.L. The guys discuss the origins of Fight, the recording of 2 killer albums, and the tour that took a 20-year-old around the globe with his metal hero, the Metal God. Jay Jay shares stories how he did tattoos for Halford and the Pantera guys, how he designed guitars for Kerry King of Slayer. In addition, he talks about the ongoing rehearsals for his band S.I.L reunion concert that's happening this weekend, Halloween weekend, down in Arizona. All exciting stuff. But before we get to that, if you're new to the show, either by discovering us on our YouTube channel or through Pantheon Podcast Music Group, we invite you to visit metalmayhemroc.com. Join our community by signing up for our email list. This is our way to stay in touch with you about our live radio show on Monday nights, new podcast episodes, new YouTube videos we do. We're dropping content all the time, have it be CD reviews or concert reviews. So again, that's metalmayhemroc.com. We have an archive drop-down box. Last week, we had Sirith Ungol talking about their new album. 2 weeks ago, a review of the Power Trip concert from a guy that was there. Let's see. We had Rick Emmett recently of Triumph, Tommy Victor of Prong, Udo Dirkschneider. You get the idea. So again, that's metalmayhemroc.com. Visit our YouTube channel on YouTube. Tons of videos there that you don't find on the podcast location. In any case, do us a favor, subscribe to all these, leave a review if you can. And if we get some, we'll read them on the air. So let's get into this. Metal Walt, Jay Jay Brown of Fight, War of Words 30 years later. I'm the Vernomatic. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
On tonight's episode, I'm joined by Jay Jay Brown, bassist of the 1990s metal band Fight, which of course featured the legendary frontman, the metal goblin himself, Rob Halford. So Jay Jay joins us today because we're going to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the War of Words album, which is a killer one. But we also want to hear from him about what's going on in 2023. He's a thriving tattoo artist. He's a thriving painter. And he's got the reunion of one of his bands, S.I.L. So Jay Jay, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC.
Thanks, Walt. How you doing, sir?
I am good, man. So we're going to go back in history. We're going to talk a lot about the Fight days, of course, but we want to talk about, like, you know, what have you been doing since those Fight days? So talk a little bit about the band. Do you have an upcoming show, a reunion show? Is it down in Arizona, I see?
Yeah, it's S.I.L. It's Satanic Industries Limited. It was a band that I had around the same time as Fight. You know, we released a couple CDs, and we hadn't played together since probably early 2000. And, you know, I was going through some video stuff and digitizing it because I have a whole box of videos of stuff. And I sent some stuff to them, and they're like, "Man, we should do a reunion show." And I was like, I mean, if you're all up for it, yeah, let's do it.
Who's all in the band? And what I think is kind of cool, you got this show coming up down in a venue in Mesa, Arizona, and it's a bring your own beer venue. Like, talk about that, man.
It's our buddy's Mike's place. It's like a rehearsal room, but it's set up really cool. It looks like something like Rob Zombie would design the interior of the place. It's got a really cool vibe, and we just thought, we wanted to do something a little bit smaller, more personal. So we really haven't even really like promoted the show. It's more of a word of mouth, smaller deal because it's a smaller place, and it's just something for us to get together and jam again. Because it's been over 25 years.
I mean, for those that don't know the kind of music, like describe what kind of music is it?
Like metal music with some samples in it, a little bit of keys. My guitar player, Kristen, he's been in like Gray Days. He's in Gray Days. He was in he was in a bunch of other bands too, and then he's also in Pack 666 with me also. Rich, the drummer, he's in a bunch of different bands, and Goody, the other guitarist, is mostly known for his sound engineering. He's been out with Hatebreed and Hell Yeah, a whole slew of people running sound for them. And he said he'd never even pick up his guitar again to do music. So I was really surprised when he said that he was up for it. I figured, what the hell? I guess I could do it too. We just had our second rehearsal, and it's not bad for that long a time.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, because your roots, I think maybe were in Arizona, but you live up in Ohio. I see it. Is that where you are?
Yeah.
Flying down to do gig rehearsals, man. That's impressive.
You got to do what you love. You only got one life to live, man, and it's a short one. So if you're going to do something, do it.
Well, JJ, best of luck with those shows. We'll look forward to hearing all about them. Talk a little bit about your thriving art career, right? So you have a tattoo shop, correct? Is it called Permanent Skin Artistry?
Yep, that's what it's called. My mom started the shop back in 2000. It was just a piercing shop, and then like after my stepdad had passed, I had moved back up here to Ohio to kind of help her out with the shop, and we brought tattooing into it. And it's just been kind of a growing thing. I've been in and out of it. Sometimes I walk away from it. I get bored with stuff and I move on, just like with my painting. I'll paint for a little while and move on to something else. I'll record stuff for months, and I won't record stuff for months, more. Just go with whatever you feel.
A few weeks ago when you and I connected and we were setting up this discussion, I happened to be over, I was on a plane. I was going on a work trip to Europe, brought the Rob Halford book with me, Biblical, and I hadn't finished it. And then, I was towards the back end of it, and I'm reading it on the plane, and sure enough, there's a part that comes up about tattoos. And sure enough, there's a half a page where he describes the first time he got inked, and come to find out, you did a lot of work for him. Talk about that whole experience of inking up the metal god.
I moved down to Arizona with my band Cyanide, back in the early, like probably around 90. And I was working at a shop out there, Artistic Skin Design. Well, it just happened that was the shop that Rob was getting all of his work at, living in Phoenix. And he happened to see my portfolio, dug my work, and, I became his regular tattooist, and he brought in Sebastian Bach. He brought in the Pantera guys. I tattooed all of them. Kerry King was with him. And then when Kerry decided to get some work, he came to me. We did a bunch of work on his head. We did that tribal down his arm. The God Hates Us All. I did him and Aisha's wedding bands. And then I ended up designing all his guitars for him. And then designed some Slayer shirts. They even made a blacklight poster out of one of my designs.
Was like this the first time he got inked, like on his chest or his legs, or like had you guys already been in the band together, or was this even before Fight was put together?
Yeah, this was before Fight was put together.
Wow. So you got introduced to him because, of course, he lives down in Arizona, or he has a place down there, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Rob's been down there for quite a while. He loves it down in Arizona.
About these Slayer guitars, because you feature some great images on your Facebook page of the work you've done on Kerry King's guitar, and you've also done some work on him. So talk about the work you've done on this. Are these guitars that were, let's say, used on stage, or are these like more for his personal collection?
No, that's the BC Rich line, the signature series. It is. They sell those. They've been selling those for, probably over 10 years or so. Yeah, those are cool. I was surprised when he decided to leave BC Rich and go to Dean. Yeah, I'm gonna miss him using those.
Yeah. And how does that work? I mean, being an artist, like, does somebody like Kerry come to you and say, hey, JJ, you know what? You do great work on tattoo work, and I see that you're a painter, and I got this line of guitars, and I'd like you to, I got this image in my head or a vision of what I want? Or does he just kind of give you free rein to say, you know what, have a go at it?
No, we talk about stuff, and I'll send him rough drafts, and we'll go back and forth. I mean, we've been friends since we met, back early when I was tattooing the Pantera guys, and me and Kerry would go hang out at TGI Fridays, and drink at the bar there in Phoenix when he lived out there, because he was out there for quite a while too. When I lived out there.
I'm just curious. I'm thinking about this. I was when Sabbath did their reunion tour, they played the Bank One Ballpark in Phoenix, Arizona. I think it was New Year's Eve, 98 or 99. I flew down from Jersey for that show. And that was great because that was the first time Sabbath had hit the soil again with Bill Ward. And you had Pantera and Slayer, and I think it was Soulfly and Megadeth opening that show. So,
oh, God.
Yeah. Maybe you were at that show, but that was a killer one that night.
Oh, I could only imagine. That's a killer lineup there.
Yeah, it was like flying from Jersey through Chicago in the snow and the cold, and down to Arizona for New Year's Eve, and having pina coladas down in Mesa or wherever it was, the University of Arizona college town, and going to a show and then flying back to the cold. But JJ, I see that you've done some other work too, and I observed that Anthony Esposito must be another one of your friends or clients. Anthony is probably most well known for his time with Lynch Mob, but you've done some artwork for him, but it's also tied into some of the work you've done on his skin. So talk a little bit about that artwork.
I met Anthony when he lived down in Phoenix too. And we've been friends since then. I did a bunch of tarot cards on him that were Salvador Dali tarot cards. And then he asked me to do with those 3 paintings right there for his house. And I was excited to do that, especially to do some Salvador Dali stuff. And to do stuff that I tattooed on him over 20 years ago, too, was cool,
Okay, that's pretty awesome. And I got to say, well, maybe it's a question because, you are a tattoo artist. You're doing these awesome paintings. Like, how do you work it in? Is it, like when you come home at night after you're doing your tattoo day, you just get behind the canvas and you start painting away? Because I'm not going to lie, man, when you put the picture out there of the 4 guys in Kiss, I mean, that thing it's fucking awesome, man. I'm not going to lie. Now, do you keep that? Do you sell that? Do you hang it up in your shop? What goes on with these requests?
I just sold that piece, and that was really actually like the first piece that I really sold. And I actually used that cash towards me going back and forth down to Phoenix for rehearsal. Or I would have kept it because that was a nice painting.
Oh, you see the picture of Gene, man, and it's just like the blood coming out. Now, was that off of a particular, let's say, period of time at Kiss, an inspiration, or a particular album, something like that?
I just looked for different pictures of the band that I thought went well together, and definitely I was looking for like earlier, like late 70s stuff. But yeah, I just found pictures that I liked and thought would go well together and just put them together.
That's pretty awesome. And I see you've also done some really, really cool paintings. There's one of Prince, and I guess you must have done one around the time Pee Wee Herman passed away in the summer, where he's kind of, I can't remember if he's holding up a cross or looking up to the heavens, but, where do you take your inspiration? Is it just kind of whatever comes to you at the time?
It's crazy because I started that piece before he passed.
Wow.
And yeah, I was really bummed about that. So that gave me a fire to finish it though. Cause like I said, I only do stuff when I'm in the mood, so some stuff sits, like Anthony's stuff sat for a while just to give me fresh eyes and look at it, give it some time to sit. Cause you see other stuff, but you're looking at constantly painting it, and you need to walk away from it sometimes to see what you want to do next.
Yeah, it's pretty great though. Really impressive stuff, man. It's
Thank you.
Nice to see that, despite your history with Fight, you got this other budding career, and it is tied back into the music scene, into metal, and it's, with the artistry and all the guys you've inked and now painting for. Really, really cool, man. So congratulations on that part of your career. So hey, we wanted to get into talk about the back days of Fight. And listen, we all should celebrate it because it was recently the 30th anniversary of the War of War albums. I got to tell you, JJ, I mean, that was a really cool period of time for me because, just coming off of like my first experiences of Judas Priest, being a teenager, I didn't really get to, see the heyday of the 80s era. I'm 53 now. So, I only cut my teeth around the time of Ram It Down and then when Painkiller came out. So, it's no secret. Rob talks about the experience. I mean, he was, in a sense, like Painkiller was a rebound album, I think, that came out of the 80s period where their image was maybe a little bit on a decline after Turbo, and they put together this, killer album. Scott Travis is in there. And again, he documents it in his book that he admits, like, in a sense, he probably made a mistake walking away from the band. But I'm just curious, like, how did the whole evolution of the band start? How did you get the call? How did the band get put together?
Well, Rob had talked about wanting to do like just a side project, from Priest, just for fun. And he had seen my band play, and he liked what me and my guitar player were doing, being Brian Tills. And it was, it all started out as a side project, but then from what I remember, the Priest guys weren't happy about that. And so, a lot of faxes went back and forth, and that's when he ended up having to walk away from Priest, which was sad,
Wow. So you're thinking that it was really just because he was trying to dabble in maybe doing a little side project. It kind of rubbed the guys the wrong way.
Yeah. Because it was only supposed to be, just something on the side for fun for him. He had no desire to leave Priest. Stuff happens and feelings get hurt or whatever,
Yeah, and I remember, I think they were coming off that horrible incident with the Reno kids, with the kids that committed suicide, and they were going through that court thing.
Right. Oh,
There's a lot
that
of
was crazy. Yeah,
right. A lot of tensions probably just around everything, and maybe Rob just wanted to, kind of step away and say, I want to do something and really get aggressive, because I think the track Light Comes Out of Black, that was, I can't remember, it was featured on a movie soundtrack initially, and I think he cut that with the Pantera guys first, which may have been what prompted him to get together his own band, which got you guys involved, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer soundtrack. Yeah, that was a good tune.
Yeah. So how does the band come together, right? Because it's you. He brings Scott Travis over. You had Brian Tills, as you said, and then of course there's Russ Parrish, who we know now as Satchel from Steel Panther. Right. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I've run into Satchel a few times seeing Steel Panther. They're a great band, but it's kind of funny when you bring up and you're like, man, I was a big fan of that Fight here. He kind of just chuckles behind the makeup. But how did you guys all get put together? How did it all start?
I'm not sure, Rob knew Paul Gilbert and Russ was living with Paul Gilbert at the time. and we flew over there and met him. And I think, you know, he might have sent in something to Rob's management or whatever, or maybe Paul mentioned Russ to Rob, and he just seemed like the right fit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So when actually did you guys like form a unit and like talk a little about, before we actually get into the album itself, like talk about like the whole recording, getting together, writing and rehearsing? Like how did that whole experience go down, and when did it happen and where?
That we got together in Phoenix at a studio in Phoenix there. I believe it was right off the Camelback, like 16th Street. And Rob had brought in demos that he had made up at his house. And we would go through the tapes and pick out ideas and like run through some stuff. You know, just all of us there in the studio, just going through stuff and figuring out what was working. It's crazy. I just found a box that had been packed away, and there's a lot of that early stuff on some of those tapes.
Oh, like actually like rehearsals and demos of the recordings and things of that? Wow.
Yeah. Found a whole gaggle of crazy tapes.
Anything, I don't know if you've listened to them, but is there anything on there that maybe was in the form of a song that didn't make it? Because I do know there were some demos that were released and put out as sort of a Fight remix later on. But is there other stuff on there too?
Oh yeah, I got all the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe this stuff, or what would you say it's like?
Well, there's just like a lot of stuff, like you know, where the lyrics are different, you know, different choruses, and I mean, there's a bunch of other songs on there that we never recorded either. I don't think Rob has a copy of any of it either. So I was actually thinking about sending some of it to him so he could, you know, check it out.
I was just going to say that there's this stuff, it exists on some cassettes or CDs of yours, but, you know, of course, you know, you always think since it is the 30th anniversary, it would be really nice to put a nice anniversary box set together, a package. Well, Rob's been busy. Let's be honest. He just came off Power Trip this weekend, and they announced the new album, which will be released in March, Invincible Shield. So, I mean, just getting off track here a little bit, but are you still in touch with Rob on a regular basis?
You know, I see him when they roll through town, but you know, I don't talk to him regularly now.
Well, you know, JG, I remember that period well, because the album came out, I guess it was summer or fall of 1993. Let's get into the album, right? Like, you know what? You guys did 2 albums. You did War of Words, and then, you know, came out a year later or so with Small Deadly Space. But I think War of Words is the album that most fans will remember from that era. It was just like the album itself. It was the iconic cover of just, you know, black and white and a bunch of words and, you know, and really, really heavy, aggressive material. So let's talk about like the album art. Like, what was this all about? Was this like just Rob's vision to just go simple?
You know, I'm not sure. You know, I know when they came up with the logo, you know, they wanted something to look strong. You know, and when we recorded the album, we recorded it in Amsterdam. The management wanted to get us away from everybody. So, you know, we'd just be together working on stuff, you know, recording and not have any distractions. I don't know why they changed like the logo and stuff on the second album. I don't know what the deal with that was. You know, I liked the original look myself.
Yeah, this was really powerful because it was a statement, right? You had the G was almost like a lightning bolt, and it came down. It was a bold, simple logo. I mean, all the words that were probably in the title track were contained on the album cover, and it just popped. I mean, the merchandise was great, the posters, you know, everything down to the black and the look of the band. You guys were in, you know, shorts, black T-shirts. It was like a no-frills band. And, you know, seeing like you guys up there on stage with Rob, I mean, this is the first time for a lot of people that saw Rob in that setting, right? You know, he's up there, right. He's like in his like sound check clothes, probably not in his leather gear.
Right.
Right.
That, and in a smaller setting, you know, and little smaller clubs, couple thousand,
I mean, I'll never forget, and I want to talk to you about getting your impression of the album. But I mean, the album opens with Into the Pit, but perhaps maybe, we were all exposed to Fight on MTV. And I think, Headbangers Ball was probably on its way out around then, but Nailed to the Gun was played. And I always remember it was never played at the right time. It was not in the beginning when they were still playing the 80s bands, and they always shoved it in at the back end somewhere around 1:30 a.m. Eastern time because it was still a little too heavy for them. But that was like the first introduction of Fight to the mainstream audience. And that's a fast, heavy track, with the drums kicking in. But then when you go and grab the album, Into the Pit, I mean, it's just that growling sound in the beginning. And I think if I remember right, JJ, you were the guy that when they came out on stage, you were the guy that went into the motherfucking pits.
That was me. Yeah, I did all the growly vocals, which, I didn't even know I was going to do. They just kind of threw it on me in the studio like, hey, do this part, do that part. Yeah, yeah, that was a cool intro. Always loved coming out to that all, down about 3 feet high, how I play my bass where my jack is always breaking off on the stage because I play it so low. I think my tech talked about putting a wheel on the bottom of my bass so it quit breaking stuff.
Yeah, you're right. You did have. You kept that thing really, really low, and I think it was your right hand was always almost like touching the floor. Talk about the video for Nailed to the Gun. Like, where was that shot? What was that like?
That was shot in downtown Phoenix. We actually did Nailed to the Into the Pit, and then I think it was or was it Nailed to the Gun? I don't know. 2 of them we shot back to back. It was one of the dudes that was doing Ozzy's videos. And we shot the one day and then shot Little Crazy the next day. And man, we shot all this video footage for Little Crazy, and everything got scrapped. Like, it was so crazy. We had all these actors and actresses and like all this crazy shit going on, and they dumped all of it. It was so crazy.
Well, and that was right. Nailed to the Gun was the song that got the band on the map and exposed, but A Little Crazy was like, I guess you could call it its single. It had that kind of bluesy, jazzy little guitar to come in, and then, it did get some airplay. It became kind of the single, so I could imagine you're right. It was probably something that they could have built a little bit more of a traditional video storyline around.
Who knows with all those executive decisions, you sit and scratch your head at some of them.
Yeah, it was also a weird time, too, at that time. That was like the 80 or 93, 94. The budgets were getting cut and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, a song like, because I'm actually looking at my hard copy CD here. Well, you can't see it here with the black light, but I still own the original CD. It was funny. I pulled this one out after a lot of years, and I must have met you guys somewhere and you signed it, but it's like black marker over the black album, so you can't really see much. But, yeah, then you go into the song Life in Black, and it's like bluesy, like almost Sabbathy bluesy. And that was like a whole nother one where you got these this thrash song and then a fast paced metal song. Now you got like a blues song. But talk about Life in Black.
I mean, I don't know. What do you want me to say about it? I don't know. I just enjoyed playing it.
Yeah. It was a good one because it did change the pace of the material out, right? Because you had a lot of heavy ones with pounding drums. I mean, I think like a song like Immortal Sin or
yeah, there was a good mixture, It kind of went up and down on, it took you on a ride, where it wasn't all the same stuff through the whole thing, which was nice. You had a little bit of groove through there, but and then it built it back up. Just like with the show.
Yeah.
We get you pumping and then slow you down a little bit, and then get you pumped back up and slow you down.
Yeah, you're right. Because, you're looking at the track order on War Words, you have Life in Black, then it goes into Immortal Sin, which had the pounding drums in the beginning, and then you had the title track, and that title track kind of had that had a weird vibe to it, a little Arabic or something behind it. And, I just remember Rob going off in the middle of the song. I couldn't even possibly repeat the words he was saying, but he just seemed really pissed off at, I don't know if it was just society or the institution of things, but just like he was like trying to make a statement about his view on mankind. And then you had like a song like Laid to Rest, which again, that was a little bit more chilled. It had like a little bit more of a laid back vibe. And then a song like For All Eternity, it was almost like, bad use of the word ballad, but it was kind of like had a slow song, right?
Oh yeah. It was definitely the ballad out of them.
Yeah. And what are your memories about some of these other songs? Because I think like the back end of the album, like Contortion, Kill It, Vicious, like these were the ones, man. Like those were heavy in your face. I do remember you had a big a part in singing some of the songs around Contortion, right?
Oh yeah. I sing some of the second like line to Rob singing. The money sucking greed, all these mouths to feed.
Yep.
Shoot it through the brain, selfish and insane.
Yeah, I can remember like it was yesterday, JJ, seeing you up on stage, and Rob had his head, he was always do this thing, and he would put the gun to his head like this, and I think I remember you saying, "Money sucking greed, let's smoke weed," and you would do this big thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then people would always throw joints up there.
Okay.
Yeah, that was funny.
I always say that this is one of those albums that like it definitely has held up over time. We have a show on our Metal Mayhem platform. We call it the History of Heavy Metal, where we dissect, we take a particular year and we go through all the top 25, 30 albums and this one was like unanimously in the top 5 of that year because A, the material's strong, and B, like the sound quality and the tone on the album is really, it's great 30 years later.
Yeah. What did you think about the remaster release of that?
Yeah, I tend to like to stay with the originals, to be honest. I hated it. Why so?
I don't know what the hell they did to it, but it didn't even sound like the same album. Like, I definitely like the original better.
Because it was in your face and it had a good strong miss. I mean, you didn't even you could put that CD in your car still today. You didn't need to really crank the volume up. It was loud and in your face right there. That was to me a mix you don't have to touch, right?
No. Yeah, I agree. Like, it was good the way it was. So I don't know why they would go in and mess with it, Yeah. Because it seemed like they changed stuff. Like, some of the vocals were different. It sounded like some of the guitars were different. Like, I mean, it seemed like they messed with all kinds of stuff with it. And then the mix wasn't as good.
Now, what about the release when they put the demos out too, right? Then they had a release that was the songs from the album, then with additional demos.
The K5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I don't even know if I've listened to that.
That one came out. I don't remember exactly when that came out. It I think came out well after the band may have been over already. And it was kind of like those times when, when bands released albums of unreleased material or whatever, like it was almost like the novelty was gone and you would grab it to put it in your collection, but it didn't have the same moment of time like it was in there. But I do remember a song like Jesus Saves, right? I think that was kind of buried on the War Awards album. At the end, when it faded out, you had to have that thing like where 2 minutes went by and it was blank, and then all of a sudden that one came in at the end. But listen, the bottom line is the material is strong. So, now talk about getting on the road, right? Because this is where I think the band shined. But it was like you guys did pretty much the whole album. But then you were also playing like a couple of Priest deep tracks, and then you were doing some Sabbath materials. Like, how did the Sabbath stuff come into the set list?
We just thought it'd be a cool kind of thing to just kind of throw in there. They were fun to play.
Oh my God. And I think it was a nice diverse way of breaking away from the traditional Priest tracks, because, you know, Rob probably wanted to do different material. They didn't want to just do a lot of Priest songs and throw in 3 new ones. It was quite the opposite, right? It was like almost the whole album, and then he would go back and you would maybe play, I think it was Bloodstone and Green Metalishi and maybe there was one other one that you guys were doing. But the Sabbath stuff too, he was toying, I think, at that Hellbent for Leather, right? Freewheel Burning was another one that was played live. But the Sabbath stuff too, I believe Rob was communicating a lot with Tony Iommi around that period. And I know there was this was almost like at the beginning of the internet, but there was rumors they were actually going to get together and do like a Sabbath album. Because he had come off those Costa Mesa shows, right?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about those.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I was out there. We went out there for that when Rob, when Dio would open up for Ozzy, when Ozzy and Sabbath and Sepultura played out there. So they asked Rob to do the whole Black Sabbath set before they came out and did the reunion. And maybe that's what kind of spurred on us doing the couple Black Sabbath tunes.
At that time, was Fight already together? I can't make the timeline. Were you guys already together when he got that call?
Yeah, we were together, but I don't think the album was out yet. You know, I think we were working on it, and then we figured, you know, what the heck, we'd go over and watch them do the Sabbath set, which was really cool.
The whole band was out there for those 2 shows.
Yeah,
yeah. I have bootleg cassettes of those. Those were. You know, I mean,
I'd like to see. I know somebody's got some video of that. I'd like to see the video of that.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's stuff out there on YouTube for it. But I mean, there's some good audio stuff because, again, that was another time. I think you know, Tony and Geezer, they said, you know what, we jam out a lot of these songs in the sound checks that we don't get a chance to play live. You know, because when they were obviously with Ozzy couldn't sing them, but Ronnie had a certain tracks that he would do. He would do Iron Man, War Pigs, and the Black Sabbath song, but he didn't go deep into the archives. And yeah, that was probably another thing that fueled you guys doing those tracks on the road. Yeah. So talk a little bit about the touring of Fight. You guys were out there. I mean, every little club in America probably. Did you get overseas in different places like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. We did Europe, we did Japan, we did Australia, we did Argentina, Brazil.
Man, what was touring like for you? I mean, was this like your first time playing in like a big production tour where you guys were, you know, out on the road for 6 months straight?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was my first time on a big tour, going from playing little clubs and then getting the tour bus and having everybody get your stuff ready. That's definitely a change of scenery, you know. And being, I think I was 20, 21 at the time. It was an exciting time. You know, I was a kid.
Yeah, I can imagine. Actually, technically underage still.
Yeah, and you know, and getting to see the world. You know, I think that was one of my favorite parts. You know, as soon as we get to the city, I'd throw my shit down, and I would go out and look at the city. You know, everybody else is kicking back, relaxing, and I'm going to the zoo, to whatever, you know. I was running all over the place. They would always ask me, so what's around here, you know? And I'd be like, oh, you got this, you got that.
Now, what was it? Like, did Rob ever take any trips out there, doing anything fun with you? Like you say, go to the zoo or
oh yeah,
you know, do hiking trips or something.
Yeah. We went to one of the zoos. He went to one of the zoos in Europe with us, and then we went whitewater rafting down in Australia, bungee jumping. Yeah, you know, he would get out here and there.
When you guys did, I mean, I remember it well because you started the tour. I was at the first show you did in Long Island in it was November of '93 in Huntington, and you came through Jersey. There were some memorable shows. I know the Jersey show, Sebastian Bach came up and jumped on stage with you guys. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh yeah. Anytime we rolled through that area, he would always come up and sing with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I remember when his wife was in labor and he's up on stage with us, you know, and then runs gets off stage and goes straight to the hospital to have his kid, which he ended up naming after Rob.
I didn't know that. What's his son's name?
I don't know. I know something Robert or something.
Okay.
Yeah, or Halford or something weird. But yeah, it was crazy that his wife's in labor. Meanwhile, he's up on stage with us, rocking out.
Yeah, and then like you guys had, you came through headlining on your own, and I thought one of the cool shows or the legs of the tour when you guys were out there with Anthrax, and I think it was when they maybe had just put out Sound of White Noise, or maybe it was the second album, but you did some co-headlining with those guys too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, those are some fun shows.
Any jamming with Johnny Bush or the guys from Anthrax and Soundchecks? Anything fun there?
Just hanging out with those guys. Those guys are really cool. And I've loved Anthrax, since I was a kid. Any metalhead does.
Yeah.
An honor just to be out on the road with them, hanging out with them.
And what about, I was just curious because, again, I only remember seeing you guys in the clubs, but did you guys end up, at the time when you did go over, let's say, to different countries, get on bigger bills like festival shows? I know there's a lot of great pictures out there. You sharing some big stages. Were these with, bigger package bills or the typical European festivals?
No, there wasn't really a whole lot of metal festivals back then. Not like now, we did do some dates with Metallica in the States. That was when we were recording the second album, and we would just fly out on the weekends and do the weekend shows with them and then fly back to the studio in Phoenix. That was probably the biggest shows we did was with them. Candlebox, and Suicidal Tendencies.
Okay, how did those big crowds go over for you guys?
Good, real good. Got really good response and had a good time. Different playing on that big of a stage in front of that many people. I just found some video of that too. Playing with Metallica in Las Vegas. I was glad I found it because I didn't even know I had it. And seeing that, it was really cool.
And just on a personal note, like JJ, like you were saying, hey, you were only 20 years old. You're seeing the world now and playing in this awesome heavy metal band with an icon. But how was Rob stepping into a different environment, coming off the big production, the airplanes, and fine catering and that kind of thing? Because I think he was sober by this point in time too. So how was Rob's lifestyle change?
I mean, I'm sure it had to be a pretty big change for him, to go from Priest to us, and going into small clubs. But he said he liked it, having it more personal, and people up closer. But I imagine that's quite a big change.
We didn't get a chance to really talk about Small Deadly Space, but the touring cycle ends for War Words. What happens? Is it just the typical thing? All right, guys, you get 2 months off, you go home, rest up, and now we're back in the studio. Like, how did that whole thing to come together with Small Deadly Space?
Got off the road, and then we got the studio down at Phoenix, and I think Brian had already had some ideas, like put together for a few of those songs that he had just wrote on whatever time he had down. He had been writing those.
What was your impressions? Because I do like this album a lot. It in a sense, it's almost even heavier. It gets darker. It's a little trippy in certain times. Then a song like Blow Out in the Radio Room was like, wow, that took you in a whole nother direction. Rob was super melodic on this. Like, what were your impressions of the songs on this album?
Yeah, that Blow Out in the Radio Room almost, I don't know, reminds me of like a STP vibe or something weird. To tell you the truth, like, I was kind of in my own world. Like, I was actually working on the S.I.L. stuff. So I wasn't real present I was working on other like dark electronic-y stuff too at the time.
Yep.
Which I think is what spurred Rob on to do like the remixes and whatnot.
And even I always remember too the title track. The title track's heavy, but I almost remembered that one. The main riff was very. It was almost like Led Zeppelin's "The Ocean." It just done in a heavy metal style.
Right. Yeah, it was that album was definitely like a different, a different beast versus the first one. I think they mixed it kind of light, but that's neither here nor there. It's still a good album.
It is a good album. You guys got right back out there the next summer and toured again. I remember seeing you down in Philadelphia at the Trocadero, and that was when I think I got a pick, and I met Rob for the first time and that kind of thing. He signed the ticket stub, but ultimately, like, the band didn't last, and it was such a shame for the fans like me that really loved the band and loved the albums. Like, I know Rob moved on, like you mentioned. If he was starting to dabble in with a little electronica, he came out a couple years later with the album with the band too.
Yeah.
So what ultimately happened with Fight?
I bet he was done dealing with me at the time. 21, 22, a train wreck. I was doing pretty much anything you would put in front of me. Like, we were flying from Japan to Australia. They made the mistake of upgrading me to first class, the airline. Dude, I kept, dang, give me another drink. Dang, give me another drink. I puked all over first class. Like, they're landing the plane. My feet are hanging out of the bathroom. I'm covered in puke. I can't find my passport. Rob's sober. Me being sober now, looking back, there's no way I could have dealt with me. Like, a sober me couldn't have dealt with some kid like that. So I'm surprised Rob put up with me as long as he did. I was a butthole.
Well, I'm assuming all you guys were probably in the same age range, probably, right? Like early 20s or so, right? Maybe except for Scott, right?
Scott, yeah.
But, it's probably not just you partying, but everybody else too. But, well, it's a funny story. At least you're owning your responsibility on that flight back. And you can look back at it and say, what was I thinking? But I did it, and I got to deal with it. And you say you're sorry. And I'm sure you and Rob are cool 30 years later, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You can't tell somebody to get sober. They get sober when they're ready. You can't make anybody do anything. He's a lot stronger dude than me. There's no way I would have put up with me.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I'm sure there was a lot more to it than just your, raising hell in your 20s, but it was the changing times and that kind of thing, and ultimately led him back to a solo career. And again, we talk about the Fight material standing up over time. I mean, when he put the album out, Resurrection, and I think it was 2000, and he got back out on tour, I'll never forget it. It was Maiden, Queensryche, and Halford opening up at Madison Square Garden. The album wasn't even out, and they played a show at the Garden. And, they played, remember the first two songs off of Resurrection, but then they did Into the Pit and Nailed to the Gun right after that. So, he was still in that zone of loving that material, even through his next phase of his solo career.
Right.
So now, when the band ends, here we are 30 years later. I mean, it's the obvious question I would ask is, do you still speak to your bandmates? Have you guys ever gotten together and jammed out some of these songs? And has there ever been a conversation with Rob to say, hey, maybe we should do a string of 20 dates to celebrate this great music?
Rob has talked about, us getting back together. And, and I talked to Russ, I talked to Scott, I talked to Brian. But who knows, he has so much going on.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has time for it, but he's definitely said that, he'd been thinking about it, and it's, I guess, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen, if it's supposed to happen.
Well, it sounds like you're the guy with the keys to all the archive footage and all the good demos and all the live tracks and the soundboard. So, man, you better safe lock that stuff in your basement, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm, going through all of it. I'm making copies of it now because I'm surprised it's survived this long with all my moves and and all my partying back then. Like I'm surprised I have that stuff. Very grateful, you know. And I know I still got another box of videos somewhere, like of you know, in Amsterdam in the studio. I know I got videos of that and a bunch of other stuff too. I just gotta find it. Got a lot of stuff.
That's it. Hey, listen, it's the metal enthusiast and the musician. Like I'm a collector too. I got bootleg cassettes, posters up all over the wall, autographs everywhere, photos, and it's like, you know, that's from the stuff back in the day where there weren't phones and everything was a printout in boxes. I mean, I unearthed getting set up for the interview to talk to you. I unearthed the photos from from an in-store session that happened in Jersey at that time. And I remember, and it was funny, there was a cassette linked to the in-store, and I took it out, and I actually was having a conversation with you guys as I was walking the line. It was funny, you know, and I said, oh my God, like what actually happened there? You know, I was asking Rob questions about all kinds of stuff, and, you know, Scott Travis comes on, and he did a phone recording thing for my parents' house at that time, you know, and it's awesome to have that forever to say, you know, this is Rob Halford from Fight, and if you're looking for Lance, he's not home right now, so leave a scream for him at the message.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But JJ, this was a great conversation. I highly enjoyed it. I highly enjoyed hearing all about your back history, your current history, your plans with S.I.L. and your budding career in artistry. And it was great to go back and talk about War Words and Fight. So where can we find all about your product and your places and your bands?
My Facebook is Facebook at Rev Jay Jay, REVJAY, like Reverend Jay Jay. And that's also with Instagram and all that stuff too. And then, the Satanic Industries Limited, we just released that album on all the streaming sites, so you can finally get that after all these years. And also, you can check for a link maybe down below, and we might have a Halloween special for you guys. Check out. So check that also.
That's awesome, JJ. It's been a pleasure, and for our listeners, we welcome you and invite you to check out our YouTube channel where all this great material and conversation will be out there. So again, JJ, best of luck with the shows. Happy Halloween, and we will talk to you again down the line. Keep it heavy.
Always.
Metal for Life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.